Thank you for joining me on our final day of our February releases. And today I bring you Easter Twila, which was drawn by Roberto. And she is in the cutest little egg costume. I've had lots of requests to have Roberto draw more Henry and Twyla and Nancy images. So I'm bringing them back and I'm having him draw them along with other really adorable images, which I always love what he draws. I actually, when I am working on a release, I send him an idea of what I'm looking for, and then he will send me back 3 or 4 sketches, and then I get to decide what ones I want to keep, if I want to keep this one and maybe change it up a little bit or whatnot. So I started out the card by making the sentiment first, and I cut out the black piece of paper with our banner die, and then I went ahead and stamped the image with some embossing ink, and then I just used white embossing powder to make the sentiment white so it really stood out against the black, and then I just heat embossed it. And then I'm going to go ahead and stamp Twyla. And before I stamped her, I went ahead and got the stamp ready to go by wiping it with a baby wipe, running a pencil eraser over it, and wiping it again. When you do that, it gets off all the chemicals from the manufacturing process, and then you're able to pretty much just have to stamp it once instead of stamping multiple times. So I'm going to color her with Copic markers, and I'm trying a different color combo this time. So I usually do E-O-O-O-O as my base. Instead, I did E-O-O-O as the base, and my darkest color as E13 for my shadowing. So I started with the E13, and then I'm using the E02, and then I will add in some EOO to blend that out, and then finish up with a little bit of EOOO. This just gives her a little bit darker of a skin tone. And then for her hair, I went with E11, E13, E15, and I believe it is E59 to give little dark tips on her hair. So my hand kind of gets in the way here, but I'm just going around and doing some flicking to add some shadowing on her hair, like around her hairline and then around the neck area or the bottom of the face area. And when I did that, I used I used E13, and I went a little further out, and then I grabbed E15, and I don't go as far out as the E13. And then with the E59, I just do on the very little tips and the very little bit of the hairline, just to give it a little bit of color, because I didn't want it to be really bold and really dark. I just wanted it to just add that little bit of darkness to her hair. I want to apologize right now for all the binging that's going on. It seems like every time I sit down to voiceover on a video, everybody needs to talk to me right at that minute. So I went ahead and I made sure everything was shut down, and I put my computer on Do Not Disturb. So hopefully there will be no more dinging during the rest of this video. Okay, so I'm going to color her little outfit, and I wanted it to be mainly the green. I wanted the green to stand out in this because I think it's just a pretty spring Easter. It reminds me of grass in the springtime once that cold winter's over, and you first see those first little signs of spring coming up. So I just used YG21 and YG25. Now, I could have added YG23 also, but I just wanted to go for a pretty bold shadow line on this. So I just went straight from YG21 to YG25. And then I'm going to go ahead and add some yellow, and I used Y11 and Y15. And this color combo kind of reminds me of butter. It's a nice buttery yellow color, and it kind of blends a little bit with the green, so I kind of wish I had not used the yellow on the bow, used maybe a pink or a purple just for something a little brighter. And then for the spots on her little eggs, I used VO4 and VO6, and I accidentally put the lids outside of the camera shot, so I had to add them down at the bottom there. So I just went ahead and colored her little tights and the little spots on the eggs, and then I'm bringing in a little of the VO6 just to give a little shadowing on that. And then we're going to move on to some pink. And here we're using RV21 and RV23, which I find to be a nice baby pink combo. I usually do an RV10, RV02, and RV04, but I find they're more of like a hot pink and not so much a baby pink. So I finished coloring her, and then I'm just going to fussy cut her out, and I do not like fussy cutting. That is one thing that I do not find enjoyable, because I like everything to be, have perfect spacing all around, and fussy cutting, it's hard to get all that really great spacing all around. And I know some people say that you should move the scissors and not the paper, but my brain doesn't work that way and I can't get it to work right. Okay, so for the card base, it's going to be black, and then I do a layer of white, and I haven't done this technique for a while, but I'm going to flick some ink onto my card, and so I'm using some Memento ink and then also the oxide inks. And so for the green, I used a toothbrush, so that gave me bigger splotches. For the purple, I'm using a big paintbrush, and so that gave me a little bit finer splotches. And then for the pink, I'm using a very small little paintbrush, and so that gave me very, very fine little dots. So your dots are going to depend on the amount of water you use and the size of the tool you're using to splash on the dots. So I go ahead, and I did not film this, but I went ahead and used my heat gun to dry the ink splotches faster so I could finish up the card. So I cut the card base before the video, and I believe it is 5x4, and then the white paper is just a little smaller than that. So I just glue that on, and I was going to do the card standing up vertically, and then I realized that my sentiment would hang over, and I kind of didn't like how that looked. So I turned the card horizontally and realized, oh, that's going to look pretty good. Have that sentiment right down there and then her in the corner. And I went ahead and used some foam tape on her to give her a little bit of dimension. And this foam tape I just purchased off of Amazon. It was just a little roll for, I believe, $6. And it's a thinner foam tape. I have one that's thicker, and you'd have to cut that down. So it was more convenient to buy this thinner one. So I put her overlapping the sentiment just a little bit because I like that. I think it's a simple, clean looking card. And then I added some enamel dots just to finish it up. And this was one that we used to carry that I'm using. And these enamel dots, you're actually able to reposition them. And as you can see, I didn't like how I had it, so I kind of moved them around a little bit. And I want to thank you all for joining me for our 7 days of previews of our February release. And they will be available tomorrow at noon Central Standard Time. Thank you, and goodbye.